Good evening and welcome to The Square. Tonight's discussion is going to focus on the Rwanda Social Security Board, and we're going to look at its priority areas during the fiscal year 2018-2019. We're going to have a look at the achievements that it's made so far in this past 1 year. We're also going to look at issues in how this institution has addressed challenges regarding financial management, as well as investments. And lastly, we're also going to have a look at what exciting projects that RSSB has in store in the future that will benefit Rwandan citizens. My name is Dan Mpisi, host of The Square, and we're joined here with the Director General of the Rwanda Social Security Board, Richard Tusabe. It's an honor to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Great. And we're also joined by a resident panelist on The Square. And I'll start with Charles Haber, who's a resident panelist. It's been great to have you. You've been MIA for quite a while.
Yeah, I've been away for a while, a lot of business travels, but I'm back.
You're back.
Yes.
Good to have you.
Pleasure.
And of course, we're always joined by Berna Namata, who's a resident panelist on the show. Berna, always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Dan.
Yes.
Charles, welcome back.
I
missed you.
We missed you.
Missed you.
So usually we have midweek highlights, but this is a meaty discussion. We have a couple of tweets already lined up, so we're really happy to hear from our viewers on Twitter. We're going to dive straight in. And Richard, thank you once again for honoring this invitation. We have been trying to have RSSB on The Square for a while now, so we're really honored that you're here with us. And I think to start off, just to kick off this conversation for the benefit of our viewers, if you could just share with us the key mandate of RSSB.
Well, thank you very much, Diana. The key mandate of RSSB, in a few words, I think, RSSB's mandate is basically to create a very comprehensive social security system that addresses all social needs of our country. So when you look at the schemes that we run, we have the pension scheme, we have the medical part of the business, we have the voluntary savings scheme, the Ejoheza, we have maternity scheme. So basically we touch on the lives of our citizens, right from birth to the time when you join the Lord.
When you join the Lord, okay.
So, and even post that, we take care of whatever you've done in your active life. So it's quite a very comprehensive mandate, very exciting, and we are very excited to be serving in this role.
And we're great to have you here because, as you told us before the show started, you turn 1 year as Director General of this institution this week, Friday.
Yes.
First anniversary.
Yes, your first anniversary. So based on that, you have to keep on investing in various portfolios to generate income for this particular institution, and your figures show us that RSSB reached Rwanda francs 1 trillion based on good performance in the last fiscal year. If you can just give us examples of these achievements, in what areas of investments was this number based on?
Well, this is the number you're talking about is basically what we call the assets under management. Is the amount of money that we invested across different asset classes. And when you talk of asset classes, you're talking of real estate, you're talking of equity, both local and foreign. You're talking of treasury bonds, you're talking of treasury bills, you're talking of term deposits, where basically where we bank our money with the banks. Of course, we get remunerated, and that generates some income. So when you look at those two again, you can try to split the asset classes into two, what we call the fixed income and unfixed income. The fixed income is where basically you're dealing with the banks, the term deposits, the bond, treasury bills, the bonds. And that takes about 51% of our portfolio. Then you have what we call unfixed income, which is real estate, then equity, foreign, and local, which takes about 49%. So the fund has grown over time. It's growing impressively. And also we're trying to, as much as we can, to make sure that we generate good income out of these investments. So yes, we just hit 1 trillion, which is closer to $1 billion. And when you try to put it through context of the size of our economy, that's about 10% of our GDP. So it's quite sizable. However, the question comes, how are you making use of this huge portfolio? If you're saying you have 10% of GDP, that's quite huge. What is the investment opportunities that we have in the country? If you look at our economy has been growing close to 8% over the last couple of years. So that creates a room for areas of investment, and we're continuously investing. So that's where we are, and we still believe we can do more. If you look at the time that we got, I think we got about close to 50 billion in terms of income generated from this portfolio. So the question is it enough? Is it the best we can get? To be honest, I think we can do better. Yes, but we have plans that can make us really generate more money from this portfolio that we have.
Before I go to the next area, which is to do with financial management, as well as investments and value for money, I would like to hear from the panel, based on what our guest Richard has said so far in terms of the achievements in the last fiscal year, 2018-2019. Charles, is there something you'd like to ask?
Well, first of all, congratulations. You know, for you to have hit the $1 billion, almost $1 billion mark, is impressive, but not surprising, because if you look at what RSSB is involved in, they are pulled left, right, and center. So it's not too difficult to hit that 1 billion mark. I think the bigger issue, really, and I guess we'll get into the meaty part of the show, is the return. I think you said you're currently getting, what is it?
Close to 50 billion, which is about 5 to 6%.
Yes.
Return.
That's actually, I think, where the issue is, because that's quite low. That's quite low for an institution where all eyes are glazed onto. So that's where I really need Richard to explain to us how they intend to improve that 5% return. It's alarmingly low. Yes.
Brenna, is there something you'd like to say before Richard answers that?
I'm interested in hearing more about his plans, because RSSB has been in the news for a very long time, and for the wrong reasons. So 1 year down the road, it would be interesting to hear more about your plans in terms of reforming the image of RSSB. You know, we still have evidence of mismanagement around us. We are haunted. You know, every time we see adverts of some housing project somewhere where the percentage has now, you know, they've lowered the rates, you know. So it will be good to shed more light in terms of the reform process of you know, RSSB.
Okay, thank you. I think Herbert did mention the low rate of return. I think I did mention that we can still do better. But again, let me go back to the two asset classes that I did mention, the categorization in terms of, if you look at our non-fixed income, which is basically real estate and equity, that gives about 15% of our return. And yet it is taking 49% of the share of the portfolio. Whereas the other fixed income, which is 15%, is giving us 84, close to 81%. So what that tells you, the story is that the non-fixed income is giving a very low return, which is real estate and equity. But there is a reason to that. If you look at the real estate, the nature of the real estate business is mainly long-term in nature. For example, if you look at the pension plaza that we put across the 4 provinces of our country, it is a building that you put up and you're going to generate income for the next 50 years. So much as you're not getting a good return today, there is optimism that you're going to generate returns in the years to come. But also we need to be mindful of our broader mandate of playing a catalyst role at macro level. Because the more you invest in these assets, the more you also catalyze the private sector and attract foreign investors to come and play in this space as well. So you are saying, look, the obligations of RSSB are long-term in nature. We are trying to service the liabilities of our members in the next 30, 40, 50 years down the road. So if you do what they call liability return perspective, you are trying to match your assets and liabilities in a very long-term manner. If you look at our equities, we've almost invested in each and every sector in this country. Again, a catalyst role, but with a view of making a decent return at the end of it all. So some of the equities that we've invested in, I think we almost have shares in which most of the companies that in Rwanda. If you look at banking sector, you look at tourism, you look at manufacturing, we are everywhere. But again, you need to be mindful of the young capital market that we have. Ideally, we should be investing in listed companies. And how many companies are listed in Rwanda? Close to 10. So we've invested in each and every company that is listed on stock exchange. So you find yourself with no option other than investing in companies that are not listed on stock exchange. And that creates a bit of a hurdle for you to exit. So there's that kind of trade-off that we are trying to make. Much as you would wish to invest in listed companies, the space is not big enough to allow you that flexibility. And you're not going to run away from this economy that is growing at 8% every year to start venturing into investing in other countries because of return. So with the long-term view, we are saying, yes, let us invest in these equities. They'll get better. Much as you're not getting a dividend today, does not mean you're losing money. There is capital appreciation along the way that can give assurance for us to match the liabilities that we're going to face in the future. Again, what I would like again to share with you is that our investment policy gives us space, again, to invest in foreign companies. So we are allowed to invest about 15% of our portfolio. Where are we today? We've invested close to 7%. So we still have room to put 8% on the table into foreign companies. So that said, I think I'll try to pair it with what Bana was talking about in terms of financial management. How do you manage these investments? We're also trying to improve our investment capabilities. The 51% that I did mention is in the investment world, you would say it is more of a conservative area because you are saying, let me buy a government bond, let me buy treasury bills. But is that the best you can get in the market? Maybe you can invest in equity that can give you 30% as opposed to a bond that is giving you 10%. That because of the investment philosophy that is conservative in nature, you're trying to play safe, and you're saying, no, let me play safe and put all my money in the bonds. We're not saying the bonds are not the best, but can we try to be more aggressive? But if you're going to be a little bit aggressive, you need to be knowledgeable in the investment space. So one of the things that we are trying to do in terms of reforms is to improve our investment capabilities. Investment is a specialized area. We acknowledge that. Let us try to get the best in the investment space and we run our portfolio properly. So in terms of return, about yes, 6% is still low, but I think we can do better. Another myth that I really want to us to even debate if possible is where people tell you that you've not gotten a dividend and this is a wasteful investment.
Actually, I was going to come to that. If you can just allow me to read a couple of facts and figures.
Please.
Yes, just to lead up to this myth that we want to demystify, right? So we know the Auditor General's office is what keeps a lot of government institutions in line. And the 2018 report was again on high-risk entities, such as RSSB. But I want to touch on, and maybe we can be a bit more specific here, on the 2016-2017 Auditor General report that stated out of 6 entities which RSSB invested, a staggering of 21 billion, they had not yet generated any dividends in terms of acquisition. So these 6 entities, as we speak today, this is the myth that you're going to lead us, you're going to demystify for us.
He's actually asked that we debate it, and if I may.
Yes.
I think
but just very quickly,
yes.
I think this question falls into what you're already going to tell us. But very quickly, Charles.
Yeah, thanks. I think Richard would make a very good diplomat. Diplomats are known for being economical with the truth. And he's actually put it out right there, so it's up to us to read between the lines. He said, we need to rethink our investments. I think the guys in the investment department at RSSB, their jobs are on the line. He said that they invest with a long-term view. He's basically saying they've made previous investment mistakes. For you to think about, and probably Bana was trying to allude to Vision City when you said some of the being in the news for the wrong reasons. And I personally, I know we've argued about this on the past, even with Richard's predecessor. I don't think Vision City was a mistake. But we've disagreed on this. But you see, we always have to look at RSSB in the picture of our economy. I will argue for Richard and against him on this show. Let me start with why I'll argue for him. Whenever we think about any big project in this country, we run to RSSB, including real estate projects that do not make economic sense. He talked about the provincial, the buildings they invested in the provinces. Now, the government of Rwanda, and this is where it pains me so much about our whole coordination, the government of Rwanda spent hundreds of millions on these buildings. I'd like to give a classical example of the one in Ramagana. A few years later, the same government spent hundreds of millions on provincial headquarters. The same government, a few years later, spent hundreds of millions on, I think, building for the justice or the police or, that government organ. Then, years down the road, we have the one in Nyanza and the one in Karongi. The one in Karongi is extremely annoying because as recent as 2017, we built district headquarters. Almost 7 years after, there was an empty building in the same district. Can you imagine that level of wasteful expenditure? And somebody should be brought to book. It shouldn't be RSSB, right? That's wasteful expenditure on the part of government as a whole. And that is where I will reason for Richard.
Thank you.
But I'll also reason against him. Because there are areas where they have invested wisely and that have given them a good return. He's given us the story around the money markets, the bills and the bonds and what have you. He said it's conservative. I think it's lazy investment. It can be better, right? I think it's they have been a bit lazy in that thought process. But then, when we think about raising money for expropriating the French Culture Center, who do we run to? RSSB. When we think about an investment gone bad and we want to save face with somebody who went into bed with a golf course, with a golf club people, who do we run to? RSSB. When we think about the convention center and Radisson and bailing out all these people who have not thought about things the right way, who do we run to? RSSB. So we should not expect that the same RSSB we are pulling left, right, and center should be at the forefront of making a lot of money. Yet we are depleting their resources.
Richard,
yes.
Please, let's we've been wanting him on the square for a while. Let's let him also give his share. But if the demystification that you wanted to talk about, please.
Yeah. No, I just want to talk about the fact that you've not gotten a dividend today does not mean that you've wasted that investment. There are two ways of getting a return from the investment. One is the dividend route, two is capital appreciation. But it's not either or. The good news is that you can get both. But in investment, you also have to consider the time horizon. What is your time horizon of investing? I try to give one of the examples. I think one of the accusations that are in this report.
Those 6 entities.
Some of those companies. And if someone really tries to say that having invested in fiber, nuclear telecom,
yes.
If you think that's a wasteful expenditure, considering where we've reached as a country, using and leveraging the internet penetration, the broadband penetration, which is sitting at close to about 50% today, And whatever transformation we're doing is built on this platform. Then you start questioning really the level of knowledge, of understanding
Of the Auditor General.
if you want to call him or whatever it is. So what I'm trying to say here is that we are into a long-term game. Let us look at the time horizon where when we entered into these investments, there was a plan. And there was a plan in the sense that we expect to get a dividend at this time, we expected to exit at this time, we expected to do capital appreciation at this time, and maybe to exit. So let us look at that long-term game.
I think what the public really needs to understand, and I'm speaking on behalf of ordinary lay people who are watching the show, and based on these myths that have been going in the media. And one concrete example I'll give, Shirley, I'm not saying it was a bad idea, but Vision City, for instance, when it came up and the houses and the prices, and RSSB came in to do a quick overhaul and the price started falling, a lot of people, at least you'd see it in this public sphere, were like, thinking, was there any really due thought and due process applied to this project? So what I feel that you're saying, what my understanding is that we need to understand that there's a long-term process in some of these major investments, a long-term horizon that you're talking about. Yeah, this is something that the public needs to also be aware of.
Yeah, there's a long-term process, and you need to be patient. But also, if we want to talk about Vision City, I think the intention was very, very right. If you look at our S2E30, one of the key priorities is to create modern cities, and Vision City is really speaking to that cause. However, possibly the way the project was executed,
yes, the execution is
there are gaps.
There are gaps, yes.
But don't run away from the overall
vision
and the impact that it's making. So, and that's only one of the projects that we've done in real estate. We've done Vision 2020, we've done Umucho Estate, we've done Batsinda 1, we are now doing Batsinda 2. Yes. So what we can try to share with you is that we've learned along the way. And if you look at the projects now that we have in the pipeline, maybe we shall touch that as we talk about the reforms. We are changing the model of investment. We are saying, how can we learn from the project risk? Why can't we work with partners who have the financial capabilities?
Exactly.
You do design, build, finance, and transfer. And all I'm doing, I'm promising you that upon completion, upon certification and evaluation, I pay you the same day you complete. As opposed to RSSB, undertaking the whole initiative from breaking the ground to... So,
which is what Charles was
you're not builders,
putting forward.
Yes, you're investors.
So we're playing in a space
Richard, very quickly, I know Brenda has been dying, literally dying to say something while you were talking. Please go ahead.
And not just to say that I'll never understand why the investment was made in Vision City, especially when it goes in terms of priorities. Priorities as a country. Low-cost housing, affordable housing is a big issue. If you prioritize building high-end, people who have options to invest elsewhere, then for me, I can never understand that. Now, secondly, I feel that part of the scrutiny around RSSB is whether valid or misplaced is partly because of limited transparency around its operations. Before we came to the show, I was actually on their website and trying to, to find the investment.
They had a website.
They do, a very, very professional one. But it looks really good.
They do have a website, the investment policy, trying to see what does it actually say, yes. Corporate governance on the board. And so for me, I feel that some of these issues that we are talking about could actually be addressed if we insisted on corporate governance structures for RSSB.
So that we as contributors,
yes,
we know where our...
One, RSSB has to be ready and accept public scrutiny, like 24/7, because it is our money.
It is.
Yeah,
it is.
So that is a responsibility. Secondly, I feel that when you look at RSSB, the responsibilities, and like he pointed out, from birth to, when we go to see the Lord,
yes.
That's a huge responsibility. So some of the risks, we can't afford them, you know. We can't afford, as much as you would want to make some investments, I think someone has to be careful because you're playing with people's lives. And how do you resolve this? Now, he talked about the money markets. In my view, I don't see why RSSB is not listed on the stock exchange.
Okay.
Yes, I don't see why. Because once the RSSB is listed on the stock exchange, one, they will be taken through corporate governance. And then we can even have more ground to scrutinize them. That's one. Board. The board of RSSB should be quite influential and powerful. I don't know to what extent your board, you know, and to what extent the public is actually involved, you know, when the board of RSSB is appointed. We should be scrutinizing who is on the board of RSSB, get to know. So, please, could you give us a sense of...
Let me just break it down for Richard, because that was, Brenna took over the square for RSSB. Yeah, but so, yes, we'd like to understand priorities, low-cost housing vis-a-vis, you know, this hand to start off with that. And what she's talking about, transparency, and, you know, as members, we should have the right to publicly scrutinize this institution as the public.
Well, I think governance-wise, all the governance organs are in place. You have a board, you have a minister that you're reporting to, you have the central bank as playing an oversight role. So in terms of governance, I think it is in place. However, we think there's big room for improvement in terms of operational efficiency. That one I will not run away from it. Specifically touching on transparency and being accountable. First of all, one of the things that we think we are going to improve in terms of reforms is that we need to have a relationship with our customers.
Yes.
When I talk of a relationship, it means basically today, it's like I don't have a relationship with you, the panel that is here, because you're not yet 60. It's like I start having a relationship when someone hits 60 or retirement age.
Yes.
Then you start moving to RSSB. I worked in this ministry, I worked in this company, trying to accumulate the years, maybe you have gaps. So that's not how it should be. We should have a relationship continuously through your active life and the retired life. So one of the things that we intend to do is, again, to keep you as a pattern. For example, if you contribute to your pension, I think all of us, when you go to the bank, you get if you deposit on your account or you withdraw, you get a message that, thank you very much, you've transacted. So why can't we have that kind of relationship with our members? Why shouldn't I be able to send you a statement to say, oh, Bana, you've so far contributed 8 years. And if you retired today, this is how much money you should be getting at age when you're 60, assuming you don't make more contributions. So that's the kind of reforms that we need to have to ensure that we have a relationship with our contributors.
And you communicate this information.
And you communicate the information.
Yes.
We engage and be ready to come. I think one of the ways of being accountable and transparent is me being here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that we're going to have more of this, and I really appreciate the opportunity that you've given me. So RSSB has to continuously engage the members. One of our values, again, is collaboration. How are we collaborating with our partners? If you look at our contributors, the employers, how do we educate them? How do we sensitize them? How do we engage the practitioners in medical space who are our affiliates? So there's a lot to improve on the efficiency side. And one of the things that we intend to do is purely leveraging on the opportunity that we have as a country to scale up our IT capabilities. Today, we are almost non-existing in that space. So we've embarked on a journey of what we call IT modernization. It's something that's going to take us maybe 18, 20 months to have what I'm talking about full operation. Because we've realized that what is going on now is not helpful. One, I don't know if you're aware that someone could easily get treated in Ichirehe at the same time in Nyamasheke.
Really?
You guys were beating the system, basically.
The fraudulent activities that are going on are really heavy. So all that is coming to deplete
course.
the scheme. So I think it is our responsibility, of course, with the support of our partners, to ensure that we get more efficient and have visibility of each and every transaction that is happening within RSSB. And that will scale up the accountability level and transparency. Today, how do you play a very active role in terms of influencing policy? Like I did mention, we are talking of 6 schemes. You are touching all the life cycle of a person. But what information do you get from all this cycle? Who do you share it with in terms of policy to influence policy? Nothing, because everything is still money. So one of the reforms that we are doing, Bana, to give you comfort, is to automate as much as possible and engage our partners to ensure that they have a relationship with us and they hold us accountable in their daily lives. So I don't know if I've tried to...
Yeah, I think you have.
As I said, Richard is a very good diplomat. he has really summarized things. You know, he first said the guys in investments, he was going to find a different way of making them work. And then now he has said he acknowledges that they have operational inefficiencies.
Yeah.
Basically, you know, and for me, where I sit is I have done, I continue to do, and I look forward to doing more business with them. So I'm a bit compromised. But in that status of being compromised, I will tell you one thing for sure, that RSSB as an institution has deep-rooted institutional inefficiency that I think we need divine intervention for them to work better. But it takes, first of all, acknowledgement that they have inefficiencies, which is really good, and I commend Richard for that. Yes. But the second thing also is around being proactive about this. And usually, and this is one of the biggest things problems we have with Rwandan leaders, is that most of them are very defensive.
And reactive.
Yes, when it comes to certain things. And for Richard, and I think this is because he's a Chelsea supporter and he knows what Jose Mourinho went through that eventually led to the downfall in his coaching career. So he knows how difficult it is to be disliked by the fans and to survive in that space. So he knows how best to come out of it. But I just wanted to make one point around what Bana said. Bana, you see, when it comes to real estate investments, and specifically for RSSB, I have argued this and I will keep repeating this. The RSSB makes investments for a return. Even though he says that some of them are long-term view in nature, RSSB should not be investing, in my opinion, in low-cost housing. That is somebody else's business. They should be investing in houses that earn them a decent return. Please remember, they are operating at a 5% return on their investment. There is no you're not going to improve that 5% return banner when you're investing in low-cost housing.
So
no chance at all.
I'm glad you brought this. This is the gist of Brenner's question to you, Richard, on priorities. Low-cost vis-a-vis high-end, high-cost housing.
I think I did mention when I was starting, I gave an overview of where we've invested.
Yes.
And I did mention that some of the areas that we invested in are banks. For example, if you look at the Development Bank of Rwanda, BRD, who is the major shareholder? RSSB. So I think what we've not really managed to communicate is that these banks that are using RSSB money, I mean as a shareholder, are giving the citizens this need, they are addressing the need. If you look at Rugarama estate that has been concluded just recently, that's BRD that has done that job. So again, to ease the pressures, I know that this is a very sentimental topic. So we're trying to say, okay, BRD, you've done a lot using our funds as a shareholder, but we're even ready to go the extra mile to partner with you, with your partner who did like Rugarama estate, to scale. But I think what we need to avoid is RSSB to appear that actually we are trying to learn up and down investing in all these assets. And yet, they are very good structured vehicles that we can use to deliver the product that our citizens deserve. So the trade-off, there is no trade-off here. It's not either or. We can still participate in both high-end and low-end, but how you do it, I think is the area that we need to improve on. And I want to promise you that improvement is now. We are not going to make, not necessarily mistakes. I think we are going to improve on the gaps that have been existing, like what I did mention. There are now people who have capabilities, financial, technical, to play in that space, and we bring in our capital and make sure that our members, our citizens, because you have a long-term view, why shouldn't I be able to strike a deal to give a new entrant into the labor market, a 25-year-old, why shouldn't I be able to give him a 20-year mortgage or 40 years until he retires? I have that capability. But someone else can play the role of constructing. And then I come in to sign the contract with you on the exit using the commercial banks and the development bank. So I think without really getting into the technicalities, I want to acknowledge that there is room for improvement. We've looked into our lessons learned, and I think we have a plan to really speak to these needs of our citizens.
Yes. Very quickly, Brendan, before we go to
the stock market, have you considered listing?
Well, we've not considered listing, but
why?
Well, first of all, I don't think it is the philosophy that we had, but I think it is an idea that you are giving us. But number two, for it to list, you really need to be on the top of your game in terms of efficiency and effectiveness.
And this is why, for me, it's important that RSSB challenges itself to list, because the painful process of leading to listing will get RSSB to a level where corporate governance structures are in place.
Yes.
In absence of that, I think it will take longer.
No, it won't take long. I don't want to really sound like I'm signing my licenses here.
I have an idea, Richard, and probably that might address Bana's issue, because I think they might also have some structural challenges when it comes to listing by virtue of the fact that they are a public company. They might have those challenges. But if they went the route of getting ISO certification, they will address some of the shortcomings that they have, Bana, and also get to address some of the fundamental governance gaps that are there. So is that something you've looked at, Richard?
Absolutely. I mean, there's no way in this era you should be talk of a company that is not even ISO certified. It is just a big story. But yes, we are trying to do kind of an ISO certification audit to see what we need to get certified. I think that you start providing assurance that you are a very credible institution. And to be honest, again, look at the size of RSSB. There's hope that we can get better. But also, if we're going to continuously develop a country that we've decided to develop at this pace, strong institutions is the way to go. So there's no shortcut.
Let's head to our Twitter feed. We are going to just be quick with the tweets and the responses because there are a couple lined up. So the first tweet for today, and I would like us to, if you could have it shown on our screens, is from Ivan. And Ivan says, can we use Social Security as collateral for loans from banks? That's the first tweet from him. Can you answer that question very quickly?
The answer is no.
No. Okay.
On the traditional pension scheme?
Yes.
But the answer is yes on Ejo.
Okay. That's one of the schemes?
Yes, one of the schemes that we just launched last year.
Okay. Yeah. The next tweet is from Desiree, who says, is it allowed for non-Rwandans who work here during some period of time, and he or she is paid pension funds, he's saying it's for 3 years, here and goes back to their home country? Can this person get all or some of the contributions paid here in Rwanda through pension funds from their original country?
Wow.
So I feel like this is maybe a foreigner who came here.
Yes, I know we've been really hit on that, on the way. The current law requires you to get access to your retirement package when you hit 60.
Okay.
Even when you've left Rwanda and gone back to your country. But Rwanda being who we are in terms of embracing and benchmarking the best practices, so one of the areas of discussion on the table now is can we reform in that space and ensure that, because if you see, we are an open economy. So you have people coming here to work, many of them. So, and other countries, I think they allow you to access your funds when you go back. So it's something that we're discussing at policy level. We might change the law in that regard, but for now, it is no, but we are considering to review the change.
Okay. And then the next tweet is from Junior, and Junior's tweet says, in light of the Rwanda diaspora increasingly returning home, I'm interested to know whether RSSB is a qualifying, recognized overseas pension scheme that allows diaspora to transfer their pots. Also, are there incentives to entice people to transfer?
Wow.
You're smiling, Richard.
No, the diaspora people, they cannot transfer their funds here, but they have a window if they want to save. There's a voluntary saving scheme. So they can, as much as they're in diaspora, they can start saving here in their active life, so that when they retire, they can get access to the funds here. However, within the EAC countries, if you consider them to be in diaspora as well, we are trying to work on a mechanism where there is transfer of your saving rights from one country to another.
Okay.
So we're already doing this with some countries, but it's not yet across the board on all EAC countries.
Okay. And our next tweet is from Alvin, and Alvin is asking, has the institution, RSSB, of course, institution considered leveraging its capital base to lend or invest feasible or patient forms of capital in high growth areas of our economy?
Yes, we try to use our capital in the high, like I did mention, I think we've invested in each and every sector. But also you need to appreciate that we should be able to play a more transformational role, especially in terms of catalyzing the foreign direct investments.
Yes.
So what we think we are going to, one of the areas that we think we are going to improve is how do we encourage, for example, the foreign investors who want to bring the capital here to be the first partner of choice. So they are coming into a space that they think is a good space in terms of the growth, but you also provide them assurance that, look, much as you're coming in, you are new, but you have a partner. So you soften the landing. So that's one of the things that we can do to really make use of our capital and stimulate, catalyze the investment growth. So we shall continue to work in that area, and we have plans to work with like fund managers, because there are people who are specialized in fund management. So we are looking at getting part of our portfolio and give it a fund manager, agree on a decent return that is acceptable to us, sign off, and then they chase the deals. Yeah.
I think that would be a step in the right direction,
Absolutely.
engaging fund managers, yes.
Yes, I totally agree. The next tweet is from Hassan, and Hassan's tweet says that in other countries, if you can have this on the screens, in other countries, people are able to keep track of their social security remittances, including the interest earned on it. Some even have apps where information is given to clients about their own remittances. Can this be adopted because it increases motivation for people to remit?
Yeah, it's like Hassan has been reading my my frustrations here.
Yes, yes.
Yes, it's something that is working, even in countries that I might say are not really developed to our standard.
Yes.
So it's unfortunate it's not happening here, but it's something that we are going to do. And I did mention about having a relationship with our contributors.
Yes.
So they need to keep track of what is happening on their account.
Yes.
And yes, I want to promise us that within 2 years, that should be operational. Yes, it should be possible. Yeah.
Fantastic. You have really come with a lot of momentum in your role in this last 1 year, and looking forward to the future. Our next tweet is from Mike, and Mike Busa is asking the panel that interesting topic. Just a few questions. What is RSSB investment strategy, and how does RSSB set a strategy in relation to CPI? RSSB manages members' retirement savings. How do you communicate and involve fund members to take ownership of their retirement savings? If you can just repeat it in a nutshell, because this is what what Werner was saying, communication and advocacy with contributors to the fund.
I think our investment strategy, again, is built on what our mandate is. Yes. You are playing a long-term view in terms of being able to learn sustainable schemes. So you want to get a return that is at least above inflation.
Yes.
So the CPI that he's talking about doesn't come and deplete the fund. So where do we sit now? We are sitting at, which I think is a very good opportunity, considering our demographics.
Yes.
We are still well funded because the pension that we are paying close to about 36,000 people, vis-a-vis 500,000 people are contributing. So we have a lot of space in terms of funds. So our strategy is to make sure that this time, make sure you're getting good returns, which I think Haba has been pushing for.
Yes.
The 6% is not enough. How do you get a higher return to ensure that when time comes for people to retire, 40 years, you don't say sorry. It has happened in other countries.
Yes.
And everywhere where pension funds have collapsed, the economy collapses.
Yes.
So it's a very delicate area that we are mindful of, and that's why we're trying to emphasize that let us try to be as efficient as possible now, both on cost, because we still believe maybe there's some cost inefficiencies that are happening, but also on the investment side. But not forgetting the compliance side.
Yes,
today, we can do better in terms of how many people are contributing to the pension scheme. And again, one of the tools that we can use is to leverage on ICT technology. And one of the ways that I think we can scale our compliance is to use the staff as their own policemen on the employers. If you are used to an SMS that comes to you every 20th of the month, congratulating you for contributing, and you don't get it in month 1, in month 2, believe me, you attack your employer and say, oh, boss, what is happening? Because we've seen instances where people say, we've been contributing, but the boss has been trying to not contribute, and yet the staff thinks that the money has gone there. So that's the kind of line of sight and visibility that we need to create to ensure that everybody knows what is happening within the RSSB contribution space. Yeah.
Yes. Our last tweet is from Richard. Richard Rugojeda is, he says that RSSB has a huge portfolio of schemes and has billions under its management. This creates lots of complexities and workload. In my view, this is the problem because it is clearly overwhelming for them. Going forward, they should invest in capacity building, in fund management, and also go digital. So I'm really, I'm pleased to see some of the comments echo exactly what you have in store. Some of these reforms that you are talking about moving forward. Yes.
Yeah, I think if I can just echo that,
yes.
it will be obviously we've had a lot of tweets that we can't go through them. If maybe your communications department
yes,
can respond to this because the debate goes on throughout.
Yeah.
But I think another particular area is around customer care, because at the end of the day you offer a service to the people. I say this and I see Richard shaking his head, nodding his head, and it is really a big thorn in RSSB's flesh. I think historically the staff at RSSB and part of management have felt they don't owe the people any response or any feedback or for that matter. So you almost come across extremely rude people who work at the institution, and I think it's one area that I think that needs to be seriously looked into, in addition to that communication that everybody has kept talking about.
Yeah, I think on customer care, again, it's an area that I agree that there is room for improvement. Customer care, we need to give value to our customers, but also customers, how you treat them, how you engage. For example, how do you engage the media houses for you to be held accountable? How do you tell your story of your schemes? So what we've decided to do is we've acknowledged that, look, we are doing a lot of good work, but who is telling that story? So one of the key things that we've again re-looked into is to say, look, I think internally we don't have those capabilities. The good news is that within Rwanda, there are now capabilities that can come and own your communication, your marketing, and your story, and also to a great extent give you feedback from the customers. So we are embarking on customer care improvement internally, but also trying to get someone to come and hold our hand and tell our story of what we are doing and get us feedback So we are trying to get a professional communication agency. They are very good companies here in Rwanda, and you've seen the decent job they've done. So
I know one called Blue Oceans.
exactly. So that's what we're trying to do. The good news is that if you don't have capacity, you can buy capacity.
Yeah.
But Richard, I think from my take from this, and I'm sure it's the same with Charles and Brenna, is that not only are you understanding your shortcomings, but you're also understanding the need to outsource some of these things, from communications to investment management, because it's a mammoth portfolio that you have, and understanding, you know, certain expertise that can come in and assist with operations it's refreshing to hear, so to speak.
Again, I think if you want to be the best, you need to work with the best.
Yes.
And the best is out there.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
It's a question of engineering how you work together.
Absolutely.
And make sure. But what I think is going to happen is that you don't again want to overcloud the institution with so many things. We are going to clearly define our priorities, but anything to do with our customers, I think for me, the level of accusation that we get is not very well deserved. I think there are so many good stories that we are doing concerning our mandate, and we played a very transformational role in this country, both economic and social. But let us tell the story, let us improve on the gaps that we have, and let us accept to be held accountable and get feedback from you, our customers, and our partners. Yeah.
Very quickly, Brenna, do you have some closing statements that you'd like to give as well?
I just wanted to hear on his reward, looking at what's been happening going forward. Do you have an incentive scheme for, one, good judgment, good decisions, and how do you penalize bad decisions, bad performance? Do you have any strict policy on that going forward?
The policy that we have is the general government policy, which is a very good policy. I think our government, in all the dimensions of our government, one thing that we agree with is accountability is up there. So accountability, holding people accountable for not performing, is something that really, it's documented. But what is documented vis-a-vis the practice might be different.
Of course.
So it is our responsibility, starting from the top, to accept to be held accountable, both from my bosses and my colleagues, but also hold them accountable. Like things that we're talking about, customer care. If someone has really misbehaved to a client, what do you do? So we think there is big room for improvement in that space, and one of the areas that I thought were not working is the accountability, because if you're saying you're managing 1,800 people, and in the last 3-5 years you've not fired anybody on performance,
there's an issue.
there's a story there.
Absolutely.
So culture comes in. So one of the things that we are trying to do now is to do what is the culture that are we sitting on now. So we're going through a culture audit, and then we do a blueprint of the culture that we want to have, and then we start building that journey internally. So the policies are there, but I think the practice can do better.
Charles, very quickly, less than
I don't envy Richard's job. He's talking about a cultural audit in an institution that is known for having deep-rooted institutional decay. So he's talked about a cultural audit. I wish you the best of luck in that journey. It's going to be a long, rough one, but we look forward as Rwandans to a better RSSB. Yes.
Absolutely. Richard, closing remarks? Very few.
I think
Time frame that we have.
the closing remark basically is to thank you, and again, register our commitment as RSSB on behalf of my colleagues who are not here. I'm representing them, but I think the issues that the areas that we have of improvement are manageable.
Yes.
There is no crisis.
Worrying.
We just need all your support as partners. We've excelled in all other areas of development. There's no way RSSB can be a problem and behave differently. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For me, I'd just really like to, your focus, if you can see it happening in the near future, of communicating better and engaging with your members as much as possible. Yeah. Charles, great to
Pleasure,
have you as
pleasure,
always. Pleasure.
pleasure,
Brenna,
pleasure.
Richard, very, very happy you honored our invitation. We hope we'll see more of RSSB on the square in the coming episodes. To our viewers, thank you for watching. Please keep the conversation going on Twitter using the hashtag #TheSquareRW. I'd like to thank our partners Bourbon Coffee and Uzi Collections. Thank you for watching. Have a good night and see you again next week.